Anarchy. I told you we would react to this eventually.
Disclaimer. I don't know why you want me to react to this, because I don't know anything about Five Nights at Freddy's lore.
Nick, here's something you need to know. When they make requests, it's not about if you know anything about it. It's because they want us to see it so that we can give you our 2 cents about it. By the way, this is not even connected to Five Nights at Freddy's. Even though it says Five Nights at Freddy's in the title, which is confusing, but you'll understand whenever Posture starts talking about the game.
Yeah, that is confusing.
Well, don't worry. It's this game is actually based off of a creepypasta, and it was actually used in a creepypasta reading that Postra did in a previous video. So I'm all about this because I was actually interested in the game because the game looked really freaking like scary by comparison to Five Nights at Freddy's. It copies the layout of Five Nights at Freddy's, but it varies things up quite a bit, and it actually has some pretty scary stuff in it. But I'll let you be the judge of it, Nick. But everyone, we are here watching another Posture video, the Scariest FNaF fan game, and I'm interested to see what y'all think, and I'd love to know what y'all think about us reacting to Postra, because, like I said, I'm enjoying reacting to Postra. And not only that, but I'm going to be reacting to another Postra video solo that Anarchy sent me last night when I streamed. So, yeah. Oh boy, that stream was painful in multiple ways. Like, for instance, see this bottle of Humidor? There's about this much left in it when the stream came back online. I was so pissed that I literally drank all of it just to deal with the headache of having like the internet go on the fritz. Y'all don't know, man. I had to go and reset up our entire internet router system.
Did your stream go out while you were streaming too?
Yep.
Even after you fixed the router?
Twice.
Wow.
Yeah, and it kept lagging occasionally. So it's just like, what can I do?
I don't know. I'm going to have to rethink the entire way that the internet in the house is engineered, probably.
That's probably the case, but we'll see.
Give me some of that air.
Oh, sure.
I want anything to drink it out of.
Floating. By the way, he's gonna leave it floating over his mouth and pour it in that way. You know, sanitary. Almost. And there you go. Nice. You know, someone dared me to down that whole bottle of Jaeger. I looked at him and said, death.
That's a lot of Jaeger.
That's death.
I'll just hang on to it.
Okay. Because you might need it. Anyway, the Scariest FNaF fan game by Postra. Let's get this up on screen. Let's check it out. Here we go.
The FNaF community is one which has thrived for years because of the dedication and creativity of its fans. People like fan artists, theorists, and animators have poured their hearts and souls into these games over the years the community has been active, giving us enjoyable content that extends beyond the games they were originally made for. But among all these talented works of art made by the dedicated community, there is one medium which I feel
Yeah.
has elevated the original FNaF games into something far bigger than they ever were, and that's fan games. For as long as the FNaF community has existed, fan games have been there alongside it. They are, in my opinion, the absolute definition of this fandom's passion for the original games they were based on. The idea that so many people put so much into projects made for nothing but passion is something that always inspired me, making me want to play as many fan games as possible over the years I've adored this series. And I have. I've surfed on GameJolt and played so many amazing fan games, which each have their own identities and stories that make them so appealing. But over the course of my long commitment to playing and enjoying fan games, there was one which stood out to me more than any other, one which invested me from a very young age and would come back years later as a terrifying, polished product, and that is Treasure Island. To those of you who are unaware of what Five Nights at Treasure Island is, it was one of, if not the first FNaF fan game ever made all the way back in 2014. I remember seeing this game popping up everywhere when I was just a kid, and for the time it was really scary. Seeing beloved Disney characters twisted and contorted into these terrifying monsters in a FNaF style experience is definitely one of my more fond memories growing up. I remember it was this game too that introduced me to Dako's content way back when, with the clip of him first encountering the Face, who at the time was just known as Distorted Mickey.
One and we. Oh my god! What the fuck is that?
Despite being as influential as the original Treasure Island is, I definitely feel like this game would not stand the test of time compared to other fan games that came out years later. Its visuals, while not...
Well, no, I mean, this is just the beginner. This is just the first, like, rendition of it.
Not being the worst, were quite dated, and its gameplay loop was so extremely simple that it was very easy to finish any night of the game. That, coupled with the fact that the game was an unfinished demo, really set it up to be nothing more than a product of its time. A fan game which would go on to inspire many other fan projects, but would end up not being anything impressive in and of itself. That was at least until the project was picked up 6 years later by the indie studio Radiance, and we finally got a finished game which lived up to all the potential that the original had. The 2020 remake of Treasure Island by Radiance is everything the younger version of myself thought the original was back in 2014. This is a game which combines a simple yet satisfying gameplay loop with a rich atmosphere which oozes from every single facet of the experience. When I played through this remake blind, I was so surprised by how absolutely horrified yet invested I was in it from start to finish. The story, the characters, the soundtrack, everything in this remake is perfectly done to make the whole thing just feel disturbing. And it's that disturbing atmosphere which drew me into the game most, which is why it'll be the first thing I talk about in depth. So, without further ado, let's delve into it. Out of any FNaF fan game I've ever played, none have quite matched the tense, disturbing atmosphere created by Treasure Island. The game uses everything at its disposal to make you feel like you're seeing something you shouldn't, and that's made apparent from the moment you open the game. I don't know what it is about this title screen, but it sets the tone for the game perfectly. The barely lit photo-negative Mickey sits in front of us with its head tilted, obscuring its features as a droning ambient sound plays in the background. As we sit here on the title screen, the ambience builds up slowly, with static and other digital noises becoming louder and louder, as if something is warning us that something will happen if we stay here for too long. And to my surprise, something actually does happen if we don't heed the game's warning.
Excuse me.
Not even playing the game yet.
Yeah. Need a lozenge and a cough drop there, bro.
Also, do jump scares like that, like, really get people?
Sometimes. Well, it's made for kids, so.
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
It's scaring the crap out of me with jump scares. Nice. But seriously though, when I discovered that Easter egg while setting things up to play the game for the first time, it genuinely caught me by surprise. To have this much effort put into just the title screen made me super excited to see what the actual game itself had in store for me. And oh boy, I was not disappointed. When we arrive in the office, we're greeted by this old dingy room which is lit only by a single flickering light bulb. The place looks decrepit and abandoned, perfectly fitting the story of this game and what we're doing here. From here, the game does everything in its power to create a rich and haunting atmosphere, no matter what point in the game you're at. Even in the earlier nights
this big old glove on the monitor there.
No, that was just a big, dark, shadowy figure. Some make the accusation that that's Walt. That's the corpse of Walt Disney, like big looming over top of you.
I just thought because of the gloves it looked like it was Goofy or something.
I think maybe it is Goofy. I don't know, but there's some that like show up. There's like others that show up.
when the game starts slow, it sets itself
there's
apart by
Donald.
using...
Oh, that's Minnie. Yeah, look at those teeth.
Yeah.
But the Donald Duck one.
Even in the earlier nights when the game starts slow.
Right there. That one surprises you occasionally. Like when you take the screen down, it's like, bah! Screen back up.
It sets itself apart by using smaller aspects of its atmosphere to keep you on edge. I see the atmosphere of this game in a very similar vein to that of the original Five Nights at Freddy's. It heavily relies on eerie audio and ambience, as well as events and Easter eggs during each night which may not happen ever again. These two main factors really amplify the horror, as they make each night extremely difficult to predict. A great example of what I mean comes from the game's overall sound design. Oftentimes when a character enters into your room, there's some kind of sound cue. These usually come in the form of a door creaking or a character speaking to you. The thing is though, these sound cues aren't exclusive to when they enter your office. If a room a character enters has a door they come through on the cameras, it'll play the same door creaking sound. Characters may talk at random through the night and you can hear them shuffling around every single time they move. By having the sounds you need to hear to survive not be exclusive to when threats enter your office, it can very quickly cause you to become paranoid. You'll look around the office desperately, trying to figure out if someone perhaps slipped in while you weren't looking, and then you'll flip through the cameras desperately when you realize they're not there. It's a very common occurrence in the game, which made my first playthrough a nightmare to get through, with me often dying after using too many of my resources to scare away threats that weren't even there in the first place. This audio nightmare that the game creates is even further amplified by its use of the soundtrack. The soundtrack of this game is a terrifying mixture of both ambient sounds and old-timey music. It plays at random and is filled with bizarre sounds and music which can really mess with you from time to time. There are points in time where the soundtrack alone had me panicking to find things that didn't exist, because I wound up associating a track I never heard before with some kind of threat. Now, of course, like all FNaF games of this kind, these audio tracks do eventually become predictable as you get better and better at the game. It's always an inevitability that things will become less scary as you begin to optimize your playstyle and understand each threat at a much deeper level. However, no matter how good I got at this game, and no matter how little I felt...
was the mortuary assistant. It's like, the mortuary assistant is definitely the most terrifying during, like, your first couple of playthroughs, because you're trying to remember all of the steps and how to properly prepare the bodies on top of all the crazy scary crap going on around you.
Yeah.
But once you have preparing the bodies down to a science and you know the whole process like the back of your hand, it becomes a little less scary because you're able to just keep a lookout for creepiness.
Yeah.
It still definitely got me, like, several times after that, but it definitely reduced the horror whenever I could, you know, go in and just blaze through and get it right every time, like, no problem, you know.
Just blaze.
For its tricks anymore, nothing could prepare me for the sheer amount of terrifying Easter eggs I would encounter in later nights. What the hell's that music? This music is new. What's going on? I've never heard this before.
Oh, he's got a co-pilot.
What is that? No, wait, what's that making sounds?
It's your character. Your character is a bit of a freak. How should I put this?
No, I can hear. What is that? What the hell?
That's just Mickey.
That's Minnie.
What the hell?
No.
What's going on?
That's Minnie floating in the air.
Even
Yeah,
when
that's
I
kind of
thought I
the
knew
same
everything
concept
about
as the mortuary assistant, because, like, even though you're, like, 7-8 playthroughs into it, there's so many different occurrences that can happen on RNG in that game that occasionally it'll throw something at you you've never seen before that'll scare the pants off of you.
Yeah, literally. Like, literally.
It's
That's
like,
why...
I remember, like, I had gotten really good at it. I was like, I don't think this game is going to scare me anymore. And then I was walking to my desk to, like, input the report for a body. And there was a little guy just crouched behind the desk staring at me. And, like, I was like, oh, God, what the fuck? Like, you know, I nearly fucking tripped over him. Like, he scared the shit out of me. I'd never seen him before, you know?
You're like Kevin from Home Alone. You hear that? I'm not afraid anymore. Ah!
Yeah, basically. Pretty much.
Oh, God.
About the game, it still managed to constantly catch me off guard with the ridiculous amount of Easter eggs and creepy occurrences that happen throughout it. And that's one of my absolute favorite parts of Treasure Island. The game is filled to the brim with creepy events like the one I just showed you, with them ranging from simple yet effective scares like when a mass of eyes appears in your office.
It can also
What was that? To the game introducing entirely new threats that replace other characters,
I would say this
like
is pretty
Mortimer,
subjective
also known as
what's
Suicide
the,
Mouse.
effective. So yeah, this stuff would scare some people, but like, I don't know why. Just this kind of stuff doesn't really get me.
That's fair. Now, if it were a shark...
Well, of course, but that's the cheap way to get me. That's low-hanging fruit.
That's true. Oh, my gosh. Hey.
I will admit that
Easter
looks
eggs
cool.
like
Oh, yeah. Like, the one of him here, I think, right after this one. No. There it is. That one kind of, like, gives me the irks. Because I look at that, I see the... No, I see the teeth.
Yeah.
The teeth, he's like...
You're just like, Mickey's teeth shouldn't look that human.
Easter eggs like these ones really show the level of effort that went into maintaining this game's atmosphere, with many of them serving as nothing more than a quick
I
spoof
can
which
imagine
catches you
just
off guard.
Mickey, if you fell asleep at this job, Mickey was just... You were just like... All of a sudden, behind you, you just hear... Did I catch you sleeping on the job?
They really add to the experience because they keep it fresh and exciting, with every new playthrough being greeted by a whole new slew of characters that you don't expect to see. What really got to me about some of the Easter eggs too was the fact that I had no idea some of them even were Easter eggs. Take for example the terrifying melted Pluto which would wander into my office every now and then. I still don't know what I do about Pluto. Like, what does Pluto even do? Easter eggs like that one constantly kept me on edge, because when I was playing through blind, I had no idea what was and wasn't a threat. So in my panic, I treated every single new thing I encountered like a brand new threat to get rid of, and that was scary. And speaking of threats, I think it's time to talk about this game's gameplay and how it and the threats which come after you truly amplify the horror of the experience.
I suppose that's fair too. It's probably less scary watching this gameplay because I'm like, yeah, this is somebody who knows what they're doing playing it currently.
The gameplay of Treasure Island is an extremely fine-tuned experience, which uses all the tools at its disposal to be both terrifying, but also fair. What seems like an extremely simple gameplay loop at first, quickly becomes a chaotic and stressful experience as more and more threats are thrown into the mix every single night. Treasure Island's gameplay centers around 3 core mechanics: disabling cameras, standing still, and shutting the lights off. Each of these mechanics is amazing for what they are, because I find that each of them forces you into terrifying scenarios that you cannot escape from. To properly show you what I mean, let's take a look at what each mechanic is specifically used for, starting with the most important, disabling cameras. Over the course of a night, when one of these characters wanders into your office, the only way to get rid of them is by disabling one of your cameras, which will lure them back to their original starting position. I think the thing I love so much about this mechanic is the fact that it's an essential way to defend yourself, but it also becomes a detriment to you every single time you do it. Sure, it gets rid of whoever wanders into your office, but each time you do it, you trade valuable information and resources for your survival. By disabling a camera, you lose the ability to see what happens on it for 30 seconds or more, making it much harder to track the many threats which roam the building. As well as this, you lose the ability to disable that specific camera again, making it so that with each time you use the mechanic, you get closer and closer to not having a way to defend yourself anymore. This creates these extremely tense moments where several threats enter your room at once, forcing you to flip through your cameras to try and find whatever rooms you can that haven't been disabled yet. If you've used your ability to disable cameras recklessly, then this terrifying scenario will always end in a quick jump scare, ending your run. The second core mechanic of Treasure Island is the ability to stop all your movement at the push of a button. Of the 7 threats which come after you in the main game, there are 2 who require you to stand perfectly still in order for them to leave. These 2 being Acephalus and Undying.
Oh.
It is goofy.
It is goofy. Huh. Acephalus and Undying.
While there aren't many threats who utilize this mechanic, the few who do bring about some of the most intense scenarios in any playthrough of the game. When you choose to stand still to make these characters leave, it's a choice which you should only commit to once you know that nobody else is coming to get you. This is because when you choose to freeze in place to make one of these go away, you always run the risk of something else entering your room which will kill you for your inactivity. So many of my runs would end when Acephalus or Undying would wander in, forcing me to stop everything I was doing, as I then watched as another threat wandered in that I could do nothing to stop. These scenarios of staring death in the eyes while being able to do nothing to stop it are some of the scariest the game has to offer, and they also greatly increase the challenge. Once you know these things can happen, you start to wonder what to prioritize every single time you see several threats enter your room at once.
It said it was fair,
it works
but
to
I don't
create
know,
an
that doesn't
extremely
sound super fair.
No, it doesn't.
Stressful gameplay loop, but also one which relies on good instinct rather than a simple, repeatable strategy. And that's not even mentioning the third, and in my opinion, scariest mechanic of the game, the lights. The lights in your office both serve as an integral piece of your survival, as well as one of the game's primary tools it uses to scare you. With a quick press of the shift button, you can turn all power off in your room, disabling all the lights and cameras. The ambience and music comes to a halt as you sit alone in your office, with the only sound being that of the monsters making their way towards you. Atmospherically, it's absolutely horrifying, but mechanically, it's an essential thing to do in order to survive. You see, much like in FNaF 1, your office only has a limited amount of power, and this power decreases fast. The one way to stop it from steadily decreasing until eventually running out is by keeping the lights out in your office. This, of course, leaves you absolutely defenseless to whoever wanders into the room, among other things. Okay, so my strategy is going to be just sitting here with the power off as long as possible early on. As much as I hate it, it's just so quiet. Wait, I can't turn it back on.
You messed up.
Why can't I turn it back on? Why can't I turn it back on? So you should only do it when you know you're safe. This mechanic already makes controlling the lights something that the game forces you to do, while also making it something that you genuinely don't want to, because of all the consequences that come with it. And this is all before I even mention the only threat in the game which requires the lights to be warded off, the face. The lights on their own are a very tense system which forces you to jump in and out of making yourself extremely vulnerable, but once you throw in a threat which forces you to spend even more time in that state, you get something I can only describe as being panic personified. Forgive me if that sounds dramatic, cause it probably is. I just really love this aspect of the game, and I really love the face. They are definitely one of my favorite fan game characters ever made, and they are definitely my favorite in this game. Their creepy gape-mouthed expression, their eyes, their voice, their mechanics, it's all amazing. I adore this guy. but I also hate him because he terrifies me. The three mechanics of this game work so well together to make a perfectly balanced horror experience for a very similar reason I mentioned in my FNaF 2 video I made regarding a similar topic. That being that these three mechanics are designed to conflict with one another in gameplay. Standing still makes you unable to disable cameras, turning off lights makes it so you can't turn on cameras, and anything you have currently disabled cools down slower. Disabling a camera leaves you vulnerable to any characters who don't require that as their mechanic. It's a finely tuned system which, like FNaF 2, makes you feel like every decision you make is the wrong one. And what I love about how this game does it compared to FNaF 2 is that these different decisions you're faced with happen at completely random with how many characters can wander into your room at the same time. With it being completely random like it is, the way you go about playing these nights is largely based on your instincts and quick thinking rather than a repeatable pattern, making it consistently stressful and fresh to play. A gameplay loop like this made challenges like True Nightmare Mode an actually enjoyable experience, as I genuinely felt like my skill and quick decision making was being fairly tested rather than me relying on a repeatable pattern over and over again till I eventually won. And speaking of challenges, I'd like to dedicate the entire final section of this video to quite possibly the most terrifying and stressful night of the entire game. One which tests both the skills you've learned over the course of the game, as well as forcing you to learn new ones entirely in order to survive. And that is Night 6.
Huh. Night 6.
Night 6 of Treasure Island acts as the final night of the game's story, and as one last challenge before being able to move on to the post-game content like the Custom Night and Classic Mode. And as a final night, this one doesn't pull any punches in both.
Maybe we should make that a thing. Night 6.
Both difficulty and atmosphere. You duke it out against a final boss of sorts in the form of Hourglass, a monster composed of the bodies of all the monsters which previously hunted you in the nights prior. Before I even delve into what I love about this night, let's just talk about Hourglass. Hourglass's design is one of the most disturbing things I've seen from any FNaF game, fan-made or not. His inky black body makes him look so vaguely human that it becomes uncanny. Things like his human teeth and skull which poke out of his body even further push this feeling, with it all being topped off by the freaky smiling Mickey mask he wears. I feel like you don't even need to play the game to know how dangerous this guy is, and that's why he's definitely my second favorite enemy in the entire game. Now with that out of the way though, let's look at the night itself. On Night 6, the only threat you have to deal with is Hourglass. He moves around the building, eventually arriving at your office, but you for the most part don't have to worry about where he's going, but rather where he starts. You see, because Hourglass is an amalgamation of all the other characters, he also functions like all of them based on his starting position on the map. If you find him where Oswald starts, use the audio to scare him away. See him on the roof, turn off the lights like you would with the face. It's a mechanic which seems simple when explained to you, but ends up creating one of the most tense nights I've ever played in any FNaF game, thanks to the sheer aggression Hourglass has. Every hour he moves quicker and quicker, making it harder to see where he starts before he's entered into your room. This combined with the fact that he can be really hard to spot on some—
really difficult.
Yeah. It's just like, oh, you thought it was done. Okay. What are twin powers activate? And then they're all a big amalgamation that just like randomizes and like goes wherever the fuck he wants.
Your only defense is catching wherever he started at. So it sounds like he could easily like not catch it and be screwed.
That's true.
Cameras makes you feel like you can always mess up, leading to a quick and terrifying death. Now, with all that said, there is one big grievance I have with the night that I'd like to express, that being that all this is very poorly explained to you in the game itself. Everything I'm explained to you is told to you by the game in the form of a short, vague tooltip, and I just feel like that's not enough to help the player know what to do against a brand new threat like this. Like, once I got to Night 6, most of the challenge was trying to figure out what to even do, often trialing and erroring my way through until I finally realized what was actually going on. I feel like mechanically speaking, this night would have been damn near perfect if the player was given better instructions, and that's just something I wanted to air out before continuing on. And speaking of that, let's look at the atmosphere of this night. Night 6 is, in my opinion, the culmination of everything that made all the previous nights terrifying in one nice package. The ambience that plays in the background is full of these ominous bells which seemingly signal the end of the game, as you hear Hourglass shifting from room to room, uttering the voice lines of the many characters that make up his mass. When Hourglass enters your room, there's this brief, tense silence as you see him standing in one of the many spots he could potentially spawn in. And there's always that short period of time where you worryingly wonder to yourself if you even did the right mechanic. Both the mechanics of this night as well as its atmosphere work together to create an experience which feels very much so like the end of one long, drawn-out nightmare. And it's probably my favorite part of the whole game because of that.
In summary, prognosis. Game's very good. At least according to
Five Nights at Treasure Island went from being a game I fondly remembered in my childhood to being my absolute favorite FNaF fan game ever made. Everything about its disturbing presentation, to its tight and stressful mechanics, to its story and characters made me love this game every second I played it. It makes me so happy to see a studio like Radiance show up in the community, remaking old fan games like this one and Five Nights at Chuck E. Cheese's for a new and modern FNaF audience. I greatly look forward to this game's sequel, which Radiance is currently working on, and I hope that this video makes at least some of you want to try the game out for yourself. It's a fan game which deserves any and all praise it receives, and I look forward to someday being able to cover its sequel, Oblidas Casa, if that's how you pronounce it. With all that said though, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you all in whatever my next project may be. Goodbye. Hey, so this is a post-video Pastra speaking, just wanting to let you guys know that while recording gameplay for this specific game, I managed to get a lot of really good footage of just me screaming and crying like a little baby while doing my first playthrough of Treasure Island. So if that interests you at all, you can watch a little compilation I threw together of all the best moments of me being a little baby. So yeah. Just thought I'd let you all know that. Thank you all for the support, and goodbye for real this time.
For real, for real. Alright, Posture. Well?
Yeah. I don't know.
Me neither.
Overall, it's like... It still looks like Five Nights at Freddy's, and that particular style of game just doesn't really appeal to me. I tried playing it, and it just got frustrating pretty quickly. It was more frustrating than it was fun. It wasn't scary.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. This kind of game is just typically not my thing, personally. It's like, as far as horror games go, I'm way more of a psychological horror fan.
Understandable. I am too, for the most part.
And, whenever they do jump scares, like, they gotta do them in ways that are just completely unexpected, usually, for them to work for me.
Yeah.
It's like I posted in the Discord earlier, it's like what some of the scariest, somebody did a thread, like what some of the scariest parts in non-horror games, and I was like, the frickin' man-bat from Arkham Knight jump scaring the shit out of you.
That did scare the shit out of me.
It got me both times I played the game. The first time I played it, and then I forgot about him, and when I replayed it a couple of years later on PC, he got me again.
Yeah.
It's like, I was like, ah, damn it, I forgot about you.
Yeah.
Because you're just playing as Batman, going along. Oh, God!
Yeah.
It's like not a horror game, so you're not expecting to have the pants scared off of you out of nowhere, you know? So.
Yeah.
So I'm playing this kind of game, I'm fully expecting to be jump scared. Like, I don't know what it is. It's like I can sense them coming every time, so they never really get me. It's like, I know I'm dead, so I know it's coming, so how's it going to scare me, you know?
Yeah. I hear you.
Kind of thing. Like, or, I mean, in other cases, it's like, I don't know I'm dead for sure, but I'm pretty sure I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm about to mess up, so it's probably coming. And then I'm frustrated because I was like, what the hell was I supposed to do different, you know?
You don't know. You never probably will know. But, gosh. Alright, well there you go, Anarchy. Hope you liked it. This was us reacting to the scariest FNaF fan game, Treasure Island.
Sorry I didn't have more to say about it. I just...
Me neither.
Wasn't really sure what to say for the most part.
Well,
I like to add more than that to reactions usually, but I just didn't really know what else to say other than what I did. So sorry guys if it was a bit sparse.
You're alright, dude. You're alright. Anywho, the scariest FNaF game that Posture has ever played. Anarchy, thank you very much for sending this in. And I guess till next time, signing off, I'm Nate.
I'm Nick.
Y'all be good people. Take care. Peace.